prioritizing culture over strategy, over other things that companies kind of reflexively, automatically do when things get bad.
I believe as an employer, our job is to make everybody the best version of themselves.
When people believe that you see them and you value them and you're listening to them and you have their best interests at heart, great things start to happen.
Our employees are the most critical in this process because without employees, we don't have an organization.
When people see you show up in a different manner and it's done consistently, it's not just a couple days, but it's day in and day out, week in and week out, they start taking notice.
There's really nothing you can do about that other than continue to show up, continue to treat people well, and continue to make good calls.
You looked at this turnaround and you said, we're going to lead with culture.
Just because you might be friends with someone doesn't mean that they share in your beliefs.
Welcome to the Culture from the Heart podcast on the From the Heart Business Network. In a business world where employees and customers crave authenticity and trust, hosts Larry Levine and Darrell Amy are on a mission to find and showcase heart-centered executives and the companies they lead. You are about to hear an inspiring conversation with a visionary leader that's bringing heart into the workplace, empowering employees, serving their clients, and uplifting communities, all to create true success. This is Culture from the Heart. The movement starts here. Let's begin.
Welcome back to Culture from the Heart. I'm your co-host, Darrell Amy, here today with Larry Levine, and we are joined in the studio by Sandi Ratcliff. She is the CEO of the Fischer Group, a leading manufacturer's representative firm of commercial food service equipment, headquartered in Southern California. Sandi, it's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Oh, so are we. We're going to have a blast, Darrell. I promise you, this is going to be a great conversation.
For sure. This is going to be a lot of fun. And Sandi, you know the question that we ask every guest on that Culture from the Heart podcast. And that is, what does it mean when you hear the words culture from the heart?
To me, the main point is being authentic and being authentic, having other people's needs before your own. And I think as we approach our employees or customers, the same method applies. So if we're really interested in what they need, our needs will be met by being authentic with that process.
And you know what I like about this, Darrell, that Sandi just brought up is others focused. Is in order to truly build an authentic culture, you must be others focused, Sandi. And I know from experience, others focused is, one of my big words for this year is shine. And when we shine the light on others, great things start to happen. So walk us through, when you start taking a look inside and you start shining the light on others, what's that look like through Sandi's lens?
I love putting the light on other people. I'm very uncomfortable when the light's on me. So anytime I can get away from that and shine on someone else, that's a win. But I love it because most of the time I can see things in people that they don't even know are there. And when you can start uncovering that for other people and building up their confidence and helping them to understand what they really do have to offer, it's selfish because I get a great warm, fuzzy feeling about introducing somebody to who they really are because so many people don't understand what they bring to the table.
That is so beautiful because when you think of a leader, so many times you think of somebody that has a spotlight on themselves and, or on the organization. Here's where we're going. Here's our value. Here's all that stuff's important. But it just reminds me of the old quote, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And this concept of shining the spotlight on other people is really, really beautiful thing. And Sandi, I've seen that in action. I've seen you do that. And it is truly an inspirational thing. So coach us a little bit more on how that looks for a leader that's going, man, I've never really thought about it that way before. How would you coach somebody to shine the spotlight on other people?
I think it starts with pumping the brakes on what we are all pushed every day by the people we work for, by the manufacturers we work for. And not to say that goes on the back burner. That's certainly not the case. But stopping ahead of the quota, stopping ahead of the sales goal, and really taking the time to see what this person can bring to the table. And maybe, it really comes down to what seat is best for them. And we have so many different seats. So just because someone may not be selling at the speed that you think they should be, that doesn't mean that that person necessarily is cut from the organization. That means that we figure out what gifts that person brings. And I believe we're very good at doing that. I believe that we can recreate the spot for people. And when we stop long enough to see what's really important to that person and what makes that person tick, then I believe they can bring more to the table, because we aren't focusing on what we're looking for or what necessarily our brand is looking for. We're looking at what is going to make them the most successful person that they can be. And the result of that then are the goals that the organization has and the goals that our manufacturer has. But if you don't start with that person and what ticks for that person or what they can relate to, all of the rest is going to be in vain.
Oh, this is so good. I'm just curious, Sandi, where'd you learn all of this?
I have been fortunate enough to work with some really innovative organizations that invested in leadership, and I certainly took those opportunities to heart. But I would say more than that, I've had some challenging jobs working for people that really taught me what not to be. And I think knowing what not to be is sometimes equally as important as learning what you should be. And personally, I'm driven more from a standpoint of, I feel like I was put here on earth to do something, and I don't necessarily know what that something is until you find it. But we all do. We all are put here to accomplish something in life, and I believe it's unique to every single person. So once you figure out what that is, which I feel like I've finally at this age figured out what that is, then our job is to help others do the same. And that's when you truly have, I believe, satisfaction in life. We all have to have money. We all want to make money. But the reality is, I believe as an employer, our job is to make everybody the best version of themselves. And then that benefits us at work, and it benefits everyone in that person's personal life. That's what we do this for.
Ah, what a beautiful perspective. Well, we're going to take a quick break and hear from our sponsors. And when we come back, we're going to take a deeper dive into how this is playing out at the Fischer Group. So stay tuned. We'll be back in just a moment. At Culture from the Heart, we believe that great leaders put their people first, leading with empathy and purpose. That's why we're thrilled to partner with Learn It, a global leader in learning for over 30 years, to bring you an exclusive offer: 45 days of free, unlimited training for your team with a minimum of 5 participants.
This isn't just about skills. It's about creating a culture where your people feel valued, supported, and empowered to grow. Did you know that 94% of employees are more likely to stay at companies that invest in their development? Culture from the Heart means giving your team the tools they need to thrive, not just for today, but for the future.
Learn It's courses help your team master essential skills like communication, collaboration, and emotional intelligence, all foundations of a people-first workplace. It's about fostering resilience, connection, and growth.
Don't wait. Visit learnit.com/culture to claim your 45 days of free training and start building a workplace where your people and your business can thrive.
That's learnit.com/culture. Start enhancing your learning culture today. Get back to it. We're here at Culture from the Heart with Sandi Ratcliff from the Fischer Group. Sandi, the story of the culture at the Fischer Group has been a beautiful thing to see unfold. Larry and I've had a bit of a front row seat to this, and watching how you've used culture as a really important part of taking the company and turning it around and building something really amazing and beautiful. Can you fill us in a little bit on the story of the recent season of the Fischer Group and how culture is playing a big role in the success that you're enjoying?
Sure. The Fischer Group was an iconic rep group that I even knew from being an East Coast person. It was established in 1982, so it has very deep roots. It was established by two gentlemen that the whole industry knew that they were two stand-up, solid human beings that actually helped many of the rep groups in Southern California get started because they were generous and kind enough to help people figure out how they needed to go about that process. And them both, one went on to work at a premium manufacturer, and the other one worked several more years and decided to retire. With that, it's not easy to find a good succession plan. And just because you might be friends with someone doesn't mean that they share in your beliefs. You may think they do, but the reality is maybe they don't. And unfortunately, that's what happened at Fischer Group. And with that, they lost 10 employees right off the bat that had been long tenured employees. They were upset, not happy. The entire culture here had honestly imploded. And with that, we certainly lost manufacturers. And, people like to follow along. So with one, a second, a third, and we continued in that downward spiral for a good 12 months. And it really took baby steps of getting people to trust again. And that started within the organization. It also started in the manufacturer world. And, part of our challenge was that I was an East Coast person being from Atlanta who moved out literally the year before to pursue a professional career. And no one knew me here. So it was trying to get people to trust us and trust our decision-making, trust our leadership again. And that's a slow process, and you can't beat people over the head with that. That's something that you just have to show up every day, be your authentic self, make good moral decisions, and treat people the way you want to be treated. And it has been a long process. We are now approaching 3 years, and I can confidently say that we have done a complete 180. We have trusted manufacturers who are happy with us. We have dealer partners that are happy with us. They trust us again. Our employees are the most critical in this process because without employees, we don't have an organization. And I believe that our employees know that they come first. They matter, and their trust in us and our decision-making matters. We've invested money when we didn't have the money to invest because we did go through a loss of revenue tremendously. But we put what money we had into a training program that with Selling from the Heart because we knew that we had everything to lose if we didn't invest in our people. And I have no regrets. The investment has paid off. I don't believe we would be where we are today had we not started this journey a year ago. And part of it is just letting our employees know that we do value them and we want to invest in them and we want to make them not just better salespeople, but we want to help us all become better people and do a better job with each other and learning how to be a cohesive team and understanding that, you don't put down one of your teammates because it makes us all look bad. It's helping lift that teammate up and helping that teammate get to where they need to be instead of looking to take that person out, which is what I inherited 3 years ago.
It's such a wonderful story. And I encourage, everyone who's listening and watching to reach out to Sandi because, like Darrell's mentioned, we've gotten a front row seat in this. I'm a big believer in this is that through darkness comes so much goodness. And the one thing, if I can kind of just throw a highlighter on what Sandi was saying is when people believe that you see them and you value them and you're listening to them and you have their best interests at heart, great things start to happen. They sense it. They sense all of this and they reciprocate. It's just the law of reciprocity. And I applaud you, Sandi, for this, because I know there's been some sleepless nights, but it's been well worth it. It's been well worth building a culture based on how you value your people.
It has been worth it. And there were days I would not have answered that way. But I can say at this point,
real talk.
It definitely has been worth it.
Well, and this is such a great story because, look, there's leaders listening in that at some point, every business goes through cycles, seasons, challenges. There is going to be a challenge at some point, and so I think what's really inspirational and instructive here is you looked at this turnaround and you said, we're going to lead with culture. We're going to go culture first on this turnaround. There's a lot of, when you think of turnaround, a lot of times you bring in the CFOs and they start cutting stuff or you have the organizational strategy, all this stuff that can be done and is good. But I think the way that you led and said, okay, we're going to get the culture right first. Share with us some more about prioritizing culture over strategy, over other things that companies kind of reflexively, automatically do when things get bad. Because I think what's interesting here, Sandi, is culture. You led with culture, and now we're witnessing this turnaround. So share a little bit more about that, because this is so powerful.
Well, I would love to take credit that I'm this really smart human being that landed on this magical plan. But the reality is I saw culture wipe out a rock solid, great reputation company that the entire industry thought was untouchable. And it was solely culture eroding that made it rot from the inside out. And I was taking that in along with the rest of the industry, that how mind-boggling that something that we typically would coin as, not as important as culture, took this company to its knees. And to me, it was just a no-brainer. It was where we had to start, because without a safe culture of building people up instead of tearing people down, we had no chance at saving the organization. And that's what we did. We started there. And I have to say, it's we had a lot of roadblocks. We had even after I got here, we still had manufacturers say, oh, we're not so sure. We really don't know those people that are running things now. And they made decisions to walk away from us. And all I could do on my own was think to myself, you're making the wrong call. You're making the wrong call. I know you don't know us, but you'll never find people who are more determined and hardworking to make this work. And the entire industry, I'm telling you, bet against us. And everybody thought I was losing my mind that I took on this job and this organization. But I believed in the roots that started it. I believed in those roots that sustained together for 40 years. And I knew we had the ability to turn the team around and work together as long as our intentions were pure and they weren't about me. They weren't about Greg, who is one of our founding partners. It had to be about them. It had to be about the employees. And once we made it about the employees started making our manufacturers and our customers their priority. But it had to start with them.
Oh, hey, Darrell, this is so good. I got visions of Peter Drucker just dancing through my head right now with the quote, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And it's almost like if I could just add a little asterisk to it, is rebuilding culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Oh, you're so spot on. Well, don't go anywhere. When we come back, we're going to dive into some things that Sandi might share with us about what other companies can do in a turnaround to prioritize culture. So we'll see you in a moment. At Culture from the Heart, we know that hiring the right salespeople and leaders for your company is about more than just resumes. It's about finding individuals who have what it takes to succeed. That's why we're excited to offer candidate assessments from Selling from the Heart to help ensure you make great hiring decisions for your sales team.
Based on data from surveys of over 2.2 million sales professionals and sales leaders, these assessments benchmark your candidates against the core skills of top-performing salespeople and leaders. You'll gain unparalleled insight into their potential, uncovering whether they have the mindset, abilities, and behaviors needed to thrive in your organization.
It's not just about filling a role. It's about ensuring that every sales hire aligns with your culture and contributes to your success. Don't leave your next hire to chance.
Visit sellingfromtheheart.net/hiring and discover how candidate assessments can help you build a winning team. Make your next hire with confidence because your business deserves the best.
Thanks for listening to that quick break. Let's get back to the heart of today's episode. Sandi, this has been such an incredible story, hearing how you leaned into culture in the middle of this turnaround. And I'm curious, as we said before the break, every leader is going to face some moments in their company, maybe some not as tough as what you faced, maybe some worse. When stepping into a situation where there is a mess, where things have kind of collapsed, the culture has disintegrated, what advice would you give? I want to restart this segment because I'm gonna reframe this around a CEO that's brought into a company that's a mess, because I think that happens a lot. Sorry, editors. Can we do that again? Of course.
Okay, I'm along for the ride, so it's all good.
Okay, here we go. Well, thanks for listening to that quick break. Let's get back to the heart of today's episode and this incredible conversation with Sandi Ratcliff of the Fischer Group. Sandi, I know that one thing a lot of CEOs experience is, of course, when a company goes into crisis, a lot of times they bring in a new chief executive into the company. So it's not uncommon for CEOs to step into a mess and step into maybe a culture that has disintegrated or degraded, similar to the story that you said. So I'm curious, if you were giving advice to a CEO that's getting ready to step into a new role where they know the company is in some level of crisis or turmoil, what would you say to that leader that's about to step into that role?
I think the most important thing is to witness what is going on around you in the organization before you make changes, before you make a judgment on people. I think 6 months, easy. I was taking in information and watching and having conversations with employees and having conversations with customers, having conversations with manufacturers. And I did a lot of listening. And from that listening, I believe it drew those next steps of having to start over with trust in the foundation. And, there's also the piece of when you're bringing that in and you still have some of the bad pieces of culture existing, you're also fighting that battle of people thinking or trying to express that you have an ulterior motive or there's something in it for you, and that's why you're there, and you're not in it for the good of the organization. And there's really nothing you can do about that other than continue to show up, continue to treat people well, and continue to make good calls. And it's hard to do when you are trying to drag people along and you have people are weighting it down and trying to keep people from trusting you. And I think that's always going to be the case until you're able to start getting rooted in good culture. And that was probably the biggest challenge coming into it. So I would say that you put your head down, you listen, and you're steadfast to the belief that you will eventually uncover the opportunity for people to either step up and become part of this new culture of supporting each other, or they're going to step out because that's an uncomfortable place for them. But it is certainly something that doesn't happen overnight. Mm-hmm. It is a long plan, and it's exhausting. But I believe what we always have to remember is if it's saving, besides the organization, saving the people within the organization, then it's worthwhile. And if it weren't hard, everybody would do it. And most people would not take that on. But if a CEO is in that spot, I think the best thing is to carry on.
Yeah, it's almost like you got to stay the course. And as I'm sitting here listening to you, I had some things just dancing through my head that I just wanted to get out is, in the very beginning, as you started to walk around and as you started to listen, whether that be listen to the employees inside Fischer Group or listen to some of, the manufacturers, you're going to hear some good things and you're going to hear some things that are not so pleasant. So during this process, how did you keep your head correct, right? How did you keep your head straight and how did you keep your heart straight on this whole thing? Because I'm sure you had some sleepless nights and you're going, oh my gosh, why? Walk us through, how does somebody in your position when they're in this, how do you balance the head and the heart and get this all right? So day after day, you're coming to work with that positive smile and all that, knowing that, hey, I'm in for it. I've heard some things that, right, would make my hair curl if I had it, but you get where I'm going with this. How do you keep your head and heart straight?
Some days I didn't keep my head and heart straight. And I think for me personally, I'm a spiritual person. I did a lot of prayer. There were definitely times I was brought to my knees, quite literally. But it's believing with your whole heart that what you're doing matters, and with your whole heart that you were put there to fix this, a thing that people say can't be fixed, and a thing that I had employees who said to me for several months, listen, I know you mean well, I know what you're trying to do, but it's just never going to happen here. You don't understand. People have tried to fix this for years. And the reality and what we were able to uncover over time is really people had not tried to fix it for years. It was easier to complain and easier then for a group to leave and still have the business than to do what we had to do, because there's no shortcut to that. There's no shortcut to showing up to a miserable place. I can't tell you how many months I showed up and really just wanted to drive away versus walk in the doors because of hostility and the atmosphere that people walked into. And it started that basic, that just wanted a place to go to work that I didn't have to dread walking in the door, much less some of the other people who have been here for decades. And I can't imagine on a Sunday night now dreading going to work. And that was kind of my first basic goal, was creating a place people didn't have anxiety on Sunday afternoon or Sunday evening because, oh gosh, I got to go back to work tomorrow. I wanted to create a place that together we all wanted to what. I can't wait for Monday. I can't wait to go in and see people. And what are we going to get done this week? And by the grace of God and a lot of work, that's fortunately where we are. And a lot of coaching from you, Larry, that's brought us to where we are.
Oh, well, thank you.
Well, what a great conversation. As we wrap up, Sandi, I'm just thinking about other leaders who are listening in, who are in the middle of that, who are staring at the door, grabbing the handle and walking into a rough situation. What encouraging words would you give to CEOs or other leaders who are in the middle of the storm in terms of this turnaround in their culture?
I believe that it's not a coincidence if you find yourself in that spot. I believe that you were put there. And not everybody, I don't know, I would say maybe naive enough to take that on, but I believe it's worthwhile. And if you don't do it, who's going to do it? Because not very many people would persevere. And it's not about making money. It is about making quality of life for other people and saving an organization that has provided a livelihood to many, many people, including all the people who left and started a competing business that stole half the brands. Those people have been given a lifetime of a career. I wanted to do that for the people that were left behind. And I believe for any CEO that finds themselves in that spot, God put you there to clean that up and to make life better.
So powerful. From one contributor to another, I applaud Sandi Ratcliff, because we both believe success happens when you contribute to a greater cause. So Sandi, I applaud you.
Thank you, Larry. It's mutual.
Well, what an amazing conversation and so inspirational. Sandi, I just want to say on behalf of Larry and I and all of the leaders listening in around the world, thank you so much for sharing your heart and sharing your wisdom with us today. This has really been special.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on. I enjoyed it.
That's our pleasure. Thank you.
Awesome. Larry, wow, what an inspirational story and a hard story. It makes me, I think sometimes people that haven't been in a leadership role think, oh, it's the C-suite. This is, they got all the perks. Everything's great. Life is easy. But the reality is it's not. And I applaud Sandi for her courage to just keep going back. And that advice, just keep showing up and just keep caring. And the turnaround, if folks could walk in and see it, is spectacular. And this is the reality that there are going to be challenges that every CEO and every leader face in their career, and how inspirational to go, you know what, I'm going to take this on and we're going to fix this.
It's why staying the course is so important. And it's just the small things. It's done consistently over time. And when people see you show up in a different manner and it's done consistently, it's not just a couple days, but it's day in and day out, week in and week out, month in and month out. People start taking notice because it's those small little changes, and it just creates this massive ripple effect across an organization.
I don't know who to attribute this quote to, but it was a great quote that I think of often: a long obedience in the same direction. Yeah. It's just like going day after day, and you can see the fruit of that. So what a great conversation. Larry, I'm excited about the guests we have coming up, and just so appreciative of the folks that are liking and sharing this podcast. Is we're really on a mission to find and feature the heart-centered leaders of America's companies. And this is just a blast.
It is. And it's just, one of my words for this year is shine. And that's what we're doing here at Culture from the Heart. We're shining the light on those heart-centered leaders that are doing it the right way.
That's right. Well, thank you for joining us today on this episode of Culture from the Heart. Until next time, lead with your heart and watch your culture thrive.
Thank you for joining us on this journey to discover heart-centered leaders shaping extraordinary company cultures. To access a leader guide with notes from this week's episode, simply click the link in the show notes or visit us at www.culturefromtheheart.com. Do you know a CEO who's built a culture from the heart? We'd love to hear their story. head over to www.culturefromtheheart.com and click the Nominate Your CEO button. Until next time, remember, great cultures start with the heart.